Hi, how are ya? So apparently I didn't film an intro. Cool. So in today's video we'll be trying our hand at creating a Vivienne Westwood inspired corset because some people requested it, and by some I mean two. Two people requested it. So we're going to be forming this top from a pattern. What you see here is a basic bodice block. This is the back and this is the front. My mom helped me to draft this according to my measurements. And with this basic bodice block, you can form a plethora of tops. I'll link down below a bodice block tutorial that I found pretty easy to follow along. Another thing you could do is similar to what we did in the sweater shirt video. You could take a top and form a pattern from it. If you're gonna try this method, it would be preferable that you chose a top that wasn't too loose or too tight and not insanely stretchy or with no stretch at all, especially if the fabric you're going to use to create the corset doesn't have that much stretch in it. You might also benefit from using a top that has a higher neckline, like a mock neck or a turtleneck, or using a top that has a similar neckline to what you would want your corset to have. Or you could just use whatever top you have and then shape the neckline. So what I've done is I've traced out the back and the front of this bodice block onto another piece of paper. And we're just going to draw out some things and try to get the shape of the Vivienne Westwood corset. So the first thing I measured was how deep I want the neckline to go. So from the top of the neck, just around the collarbone, I measured down. This is about 6.5 inches. That's where I marked that. And then on this side, I wanted my strap at the very top to be about 2.5 inches thick. So we marked that there. And then when it comes, it curves inwards. So it's smaller here. So from here to here is about 2 inches. It's about 2 inches. And I'm just gonna draw a line that goes like that. I'm gonna freehand it. If you have a curve tool, you can use that too. We have the neckline. The next thing I'm gonna mark is the length of the front of the top. So from the neckline down to here, it's about 11.5. You mark that there. The top has the part that goes like this. So we're gonna create that by drawing a line from that point we marked. I'm making mine 1.5 inches long. And then to create the V, from this point here I went in 2 inches. And from that point we're just gonna join it in here. And we have our V. So this side is gonna be shorter than the front, making it about 8.5. And then if you look at the top, it curves in like that. So I'm just gonna draw a curve. Curve doesn't go all the way there. It's about 1 inch up. So now for the back, I'm gonna tape this back piece here. Taper it there. So the back is the same length, curves up, and then it goes straight on top over here. To match, can you see me? To match this strap here, again I've marked 2.5. I'm just gonna go from that point all the way down. This is the back neckline. We're just gonna make that a straight line across. So this top is in 3 pieces. This is the front. This middle section is the side, and this is the back. So I made a mistake when cutting. I don't know why I did this, but I should have cut off the entire top of the back. So we're gonna cut out the pattern. So for the front piece, we're gonna place her on a fold. I'm gonna add about 1/2 inch for seam allowance. The side piece and the back piece, we're not gonna cut on a full. We are gonna cut 2 pieces. So these are the pieces I cut. So sewing. So this is the front. This is a side piece. I'm gonna sew that onto here. The back is gonna be sewn here. Line them up and then sew around the top and the sides only. At this point I will be adding a zipper. I'm gonna leave the bottom open. So from the bottom I'm gonna go up a little bit, just because we're gonna need the space in order to sew it shut, and we don't want the needle to hit this metal part. We place this zip about 1 inch up from the hem. So you want to make sure you're doing the same thing on the other side so they line up. So with this part of the zip facing in, we're gonna line her up. We don't want any movement whatsoever. And we're just gonna pin it all the way up to the top. We're gonna do the same thing with the other side. Make sure the curves are laid flat when sewing, and take it as slow as you need to. So I'm going to turn this inside out. Okay, so where there's a curve, I'm snipping just so that it turns over easier. Just a little snip. Having some difficulty turning it, so I had to snip around the curves. So I'm gonna close off the hem. I'm gonna sew that closed. This boning, you can sew on it. Could use zip ties, of course that would change the way you would create the channels because you wouldn't be able to sew them onto the fabric, but the Vivienne Westwood corsets, at least according to the reference images I found, all use this type of boning that you can sew on, so that's why I'm using them. So now for the back, the side with the zip, so if you look at the reference images, so there are 3 going this way, and then 1 along the top and 1 along the bottom. So I'm just gonna measure that length. We're gonna make 6 of those, 3 on either side. So I'm gonna sew those in place. So you sew along the edge on either side to secure it in place. So it's sewn in place. I tried to go as straight as I could. You could see how well I succeeded. the ones that go across, I'm going to encase them. I'm gonna cut a piece. So I'm gonna leave some space on this side and on the top, as well as on the bottom. Flipped it over, folded it in half, and then sewed it down. So I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Both sides are in. I'm going to do the front of the shirt. So according to my reference image, there's boning going this way, here, and then there are 6 that come from here and go out. Then there's one across here. So the one that goes across here and this way and that way, I'm gonna encase them. So I tried to make them as even as I could. We're gonna sew them on now. So the binding. I cut out a long strip that was a little longer than the hem of the corset and 2.5 inches wide. I sewed it down right sides together, flipped it over, folded it in half, folded it in half again, and then sewed it down. Almost done. The last thing I have to do is to attach the strap. Ended up not liking the fabric I chose. Didn't like it, so I ended up wearing the corset inside out. So I covered up the part of the lining that had the same animal print-esque fabric in black, and I made this top to go under the corset. Yes, the zipper is now facing towards the inside, but it's still functional, so it's not a problem. Next time I'll make sure I pick a better fabric. I'm pretty happy with it. Until next time.
Bye, have a great time.